Hello, my sleepy heads. It's good to have you back on History for Sleep. In the following minutes, you will experience a deep state of relaxation. This story helps you to easily sleep through the night, so you can get up energized in the morning. Not only will you fall asleep faster, you will also get rid of disturbing thoughts. Listen to these history stories for at least 10 days for the best results. The longer you listen to the video, the more likely you'll experience persistent and positive changes in the way you sleep. I wish you a great rest, and if you haven't already, we'd be very happy if you consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any new calming and relaxing history story. Tonight, we're going to slowly journey into the world of ancient China samurai sleep habits. But before you get comfortable and let your mind drift into this ancient world, I'd love it if you could take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe. Only if these calm stories of the past bring you peace. Your support truly helps me grow and keep making these calm journey through time just for you. And in the comments, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always so wonderful to see our little community listening together from all corners of the world, quietly sharing these stories across space and time. So, settle in, dim the light, maybe turn on a fan, take a slow breath, and let us step softly into sleep habits of ancient samurai. Now, let's begin. Tonight, we will slowly step back in time, into the quiet world of Japan centuries ago, where the samurai lived, fought, and even slept according to rules that might feel strange to us today. When we imagine samurai, we often think of warriors in armor, standing tall with sharp swords ready for battle. But beyond the battlefield, the samurai were also ordinary people who needed food, warmth, and rest, just like us. Yet, their way of sleeping was shaped not by comfort, but by discipline, duty, and the culture of their time. While we are used to soft mattresses, cozy blankets, and rooms designed for rest, the samurai slept in ways that were meant to keep their bodies strong and their minds alert. Tonight, let us gently explore these differences, drifting slowly into their world, where every detail of rest told a story of honor, tradition, and survival. Imagine a samurai's home, not like the bedrooms we know today, but a simple wooden house with paper sliding doors and floors covered by woven mats known as tatami. Instead of beds with high frames and thick mattresses, samurai families would spread out thin futons, cotton or straw-filled mats, that could be rolled away during the day. The floor itself became the place of rest. It was not soft or luxurious, but it was practical, easy to clean, and in harmony with the minimalist style of Japanese life. When you picture lying down on such a mat, you can almost feel the firmness beneath your back and the coolness of the woven surface touching your skin. It was a style of sleep that encouraged simplicity, reminding the samurai of balance and discipline, even in their most vulnerable state of slumber. Unlike us, who might sleep deeply and without worry, the samurai often rested lightly, with one thought always present: to be ready. At night, their weapons, most importantly the katana, the curved sword that symbolized their soul, were never kept far away. A samurai might place his sword within arm's reach, beside his futon, or resting carefully near his pillow. This was not just habit, but necessity. In times when raids, attacks, or sudden dangers could appear, the samurai had to be prepared to rise in an instant. Their sleep was not only for rest, but also for vigilance. Even in dreams, there was an awareness that duty might call at any hour. This style of resting lightly, with the body relaxed but the mind alert, shaped the way samurai experienced the night, different from our modern nights of deep, carefree sleep. For the samurai, sleep was not simply the body's pause, but a part of a disciplined lifestyle guided by ritual. Before lying down, many would follow routines of tidying the sleeping space, setting aside the futon with care, and placing belongings neatly around them. In wealthier samurai households, the arrangement of the futon, the folding of clothing, and the positioning of weapons followed patterns of respect and order. These actions were more than habits. They were reflections of the samurai spirit, which believed that every act, even preparing for rest, carried meaning. Sleep itself became an extension of discipline, a moment where the warrior carried his values into the quiet hours of the night. Unlike our modern practice of casually falling asleep with little thought, the samurai treated the night as another stage where honor and mindfulness guided their actions. When we compare their way of rest to our modern world, the differences become clear. Today, we value softness, warmth, and relaxation, with pillows that cradle the head and heavy blankets to wrap around us. We shut out the world with locks, lights, and the comfort of safety. But for the samurai, sleep was never meant to remove them fully from the world. It was meant to prepare them for it. A samurai's body rested close to the ground, their posture kept straight, their senses lightly aware. Comfort was not the goal, discipline was. And yet, this style of sleep gave them strength and resilience, qualities that carried into their daily lives. It is a reminder that even in the simple act of resting, the samurai lived differently, carrying their warrior's spirit into the quietest hours of the night. Samurai sleep was also shaped by ideas that came from Zen Buddhism, which influenced much of Japanese warrior culture. Zen emphasized simplicity, mindfulness, and awareness of the present moment. These ideas found their way even into the quiet act of lying down. A samurai might sit in meditation before resting, calming the mind and clearing away the day's burdens. Sleep was not only physical recovery, but also spiritual balance. The futon, so close to the ground, reminded them of humility. The absence of luxuries reminded them that life was fleeting. This way of resting was not indulgence, it was training. By accepting discomfort, by being content with simplicity, the samurai strengthened their spirit as much as their body. Where we might seek softness and escape from the world in our sleep, the samurai used their nights to remain connected to discipline, balance, and the warrior's path. It is also important to remember that not all samurai slept in the same way. The samurai class itself was broad, with wealthier lords and poorer retainers sharing the same warrior identity but living very different lives. A powerful daimyo, a feudal lord, might rest in larger rooms, with more elaborate bedding and better protection. His nights were safer, his futons thicker, and his privacy more secure. But a lower-ranked samurai, perhaps living in a smaller home or sharing a space with his family, would have a much simpler arrangement. His futon might be thin, his room crowded, his nights lighter and less comfortable. For some, sleep might be interrupted by duties such as night watch or patrol. While all samurai shared the same values of readiness and discipline, their sleep reflected the realities of wealth, rank, and position in society. This, too, was part of why samurai nights were different from ours. Their social world shaped every detail of rest. Another reason samurai slept differently was the presence of constant threats. Japan during the age of the samurai was not always peaceful. Clan wars, raids, and rivalries meant that danger might arrive without warning. In larger castles or villages, samurai often took turns keeping night watch, walking the grounds with lanterns and checking for intruders. Even those allowed to rest did so knowing that enemies might strike in the dark. The thin walls of wooden houses, the fragile paper doors, and the lack of locks meant that security was never absolute. This reality shaped the way samurai approached sleep, not as a time of complete rest, but as a fragile pause where danger was never far away. Their sleep was lighter, shorter, and more cautious than ours, reflecting a world where safety could not be taken for granted. Sleeping on tatami mats and futons, with little padding and firm surfaces, shaped the samurai body differently than modern beds shape ours. Resting close to the ground kept their posture straighter, their muscles engaged, and their bodies accustomed to less comfort. Some historians suggest that this may have contributed to their endurance and resilience, as their bodies never grew too used to softness. The samurai were expected to rise early, often before sunrise, and the firmness of their sleeping arrangements made it easier to wake quickly and begin the day's duties. Unlike modern sleep, where comfort often lulls us into long, deep rest, the samurai's nights were short, purposeful, and connected to their role as warriors. Their rest gave them strength, not indulgence, and prepared them for the demanding rhythms of their world. As we reflect on how differently the samurai slept, we begin to see how their nights reveal the deeper truths of their culture. Their way of resting was not about personal comfort, but about readiness, balance, and honor. Sleeping lightly, with weapons near, on mats close to the ground, and in rooms shaped by simplicity, they carried their warrior identity into every hour of life. For us today, their habits may seem strange or uncomfortable. Yet, there is something calming in their discipline, something steady in their routines. Even in sleep, the samurai found a way to live by their values. As you imagine these quiet nights, lit by lantern glow, with tatami beneath and silence all around, allow yourself to drift peacefully into rest, carrying with you a sense of calm, strength, and the timeless rhythm of another world. When we think of the samurai, our minds often picture warriors standing tall in shining armor, swords ready at their sides, and a battlefield waiting before them. But the reality of a samurai's life was not always about combat or honor on the field. Much of their existence unfolded within the quiet walls of their homes, where they shared daily life with their families, engaged in study, and found time to rest. To understand how samurai slept, we must first step inside their world and take a gentle look at the places where they laid down their heads at night. Unlike the towering stone castles of Europe or the heavily decorated palaces of the Middle East, samurai homes were modest, simple, and deeply connected to nature. They were built from wood, paper, and natural materials that breathed with the seasons, expanding in the summer humidity and creaking softly in the chill of winter nights. This simplicity was not a sign of poverty, but rather a reflection of the Japanese philosophy that valued balance, harmony, and respect for the natural world. As you enter such a home in your imagination, you would find yourself in a space that feels open yet intimate. The rooms were not cluttered with heavy furniture, but instead left open, allowing air to flow and people to move freely. Sliding doors made of wood and paper, known as shoji, separated one space from another and could easily be pushed aside to connect rooms or open the house to the garden outside. It was in this type of setting that samurai families lived, ate, and slept, and it is here that the quiet traditions of their nightly rest took place. Unlike the beds and mattresses we are used to today, the samurai slept on tatami mats with futons spread across them, a custom that may seem unusual to us, but made perfect sense in their world. Tatami mats were at the heart of Japanese home life. Each mat was carefully crafted from rice straw, woven tightly and bound in a way that made them firm yet slightly soft underfoot. When you stepped onto tatami, you would notice its springy resilience, the way it yielded just enough to be comfortable without sinking in. It carried a faint, earthy smell, a reminder of its natural origins, and added to the sense of calm that filled a samurai household. Entire rooms were measured by how many tatami mats they could fit, and these mats became the very foundation for sleeping arrangements. At night, futons were placed directly onto the tatami, providing a simple, adaptable sleeping space that could be rolled out in the evening and neatly stored away when morning came. This flexibility meant that one room could serve many purposes: a dining space during the day, a study in the afternoon, and a sleeping area by nightfall. The futon itself was more than just bedding. It was a piece of craftsmanship. In the samurai era, futons were hand-sewn, filled with cotton, and designed to be warm in the cold months, yet breathable in the summer heat. Unlike the thick mattresses of the West, they were thin enough to be easily folded and moved, but thick enough to provide comfort through the night. Over the futon, quilts or blankets called cakebuton were laid, offering warmth during chilly nights, while in the humid summer months, lighter coverings would be used. To rest your head, small pillows filled with buckwheat husks or beans were common, providing firm support and encouraging good posture. These details may seem small, but together they created a sleeping environment that was both functional and deeply rooted in Japanese tradition. For the samurai, This way of sleeping was not just about comfort. It was about discipline and readiness. Their sleeping spaces were uncluttered, their bedding simple, and their arrangements practical. A samurai did not sink into soft luxury, but instead rested on surfaces that reminded him of his duty to remain sharp and aware. Sleeping on the ground, close to the earth, reinforced a sense of humility and connection to the natural world, while also allowing the samurai to awaken quickly if duty called. The sword, after all, was often kept close at hand, within arm's reach of the sleeping mat. The futon and tatami arrangement was not just a bed, but part of a lifestyle that valued alertness and simplicity. Imagine, for a moment, lying down in such a space. The room is quiet, lit only by the gentle glow of an oil lamp. The air carries the soft scent of straw and wood, and the faint chirping of crickets drifts in through the open shoji door leading to a garden. Beneath you, the tatami mat feels firm, grounding you to the earth, while the futon cushions you in a gentle embrace. You rest your head on a small buckwheat pillow, its firmness keeping your neck straight and aligned. The room is uncluttered, with no heavy furniture looming over you, only open space and the calm presence of natural materials. There is a serenity here, a quiet reminder that rest itself was an important part of living with purpose. The samurai home and its sleeping arrangements also reflected the broader values of Japanese culture at the time. Cleanliness was highly respected, and tatami rooms were kept carefully maintained. Shoes were never worn on tatami, preserving their purity and softness. Rolling up futons each morning was not simply practical, but also part of a rhythm of care, taking time to air them out under the sun so they stayed fresh and free of dampness. This daily ritual was both an act of respect for the home and a reminder of the importance of order in a samurai's life. In this way, even sleep became connected to discipline, to mindfulness, and to the balance between body, mind, and surroundings. Compared to the grand canopy beds of European nobles or the soft feather mattresses of other cultures, the samurai's sleeping spaces might seem plain. Yet, in their simplicity, they offered something deeper, a connection to the earth, a sense of impermanence, and an alignment with the values of their time. The samurai did not need excess to find rest. They needed only a tatami mat, a futon, and the quiet discipline of a room stripped of distractions. This minimalism is one of the reasons why their practices continue to fascinate us today, as we see in them a kind of calm that our modern, cluttered world often lacks. And so, in the dim light of a samurai home, we begin to understand why their sleep was different, shaped not only by their bedding and mats, but also by the philosophy that surrounded them. Every night was an act of returning to simplicity, to the earth, to readiness. Every morning was a reminder to fold away the softness of rest and return to duty. In these small details of tatami and futon, we see the quiet heart of samurai life, a rhythm of rest and awareness that was as much a part of their identity as the sword they carried. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the pale glow of lanterns began to shimmer through paper screens, the home of a samurai entered a new rhythm. Evening was not simply a time for rest. It was a moment of transition, of closing the door on the duties of the day while preparing the body and mind for the silence of the night. The samurai, whose life was bound by order and discipline, carried these values into even the most private moments of their daily existence. To understand how they slept is to also understand the rituals that guided them before they lay upon their futons. The first step in these nightly preparations was not about comfort, but about mindfulness. Just as their waking hours were filled with rituals of honor, duty, and etiquette, their evenings also unfolded with a sense of ceremony. Many samurai began their nights with purification. This might be as simple as washing hands and feet before stepping into the sleeping area, or taking a light bath when water was available. Cleanliness was not only a matter of hygiene, but also a reflection of spiritual purity. By washing away the dust of the day, the samurai symbolically cleansed themselves of distraction and impurity, making rest a kind of renewal. Meals were also part of this nightly rhythm. Dinner for a samurai family was often simple but nourishing. Bowls of rice, miso soup, vegetables, and occasionally fish. Eating was not hurried. It was done with quiet respect, with each member of the household acknowledging the work that had gone into preparing the meal. After eating, the futons would be laid out, each arranged neatly on the tatami mats, carefully smoothed and aligned. This was not just housekeeping. It was part of a discipline that valued order in every detail of life. Before sleep, some samurai devoted time to reading or quiet study. Literature, poetry, and philosophical works were valued, and these moments of reflection allowed them to nurture the mind even as the day closed. Others turned to spiritual practices, reciting Buddhist sutras, engaging in meditation, or offering a prayer for safety and guidance. For many, these nightly rituals were not optional but essential. They believed that discipline in small things, such as the preparation for sleep, built strength for greater challenges. Just as a blade required constant care to remain sharp, so too did the samurai's spirit require steady practice to remain resilient. There was also a sense of readiness woven into these rituals. Unlike the deep, unguarded sleep we imagine for ourselves, a samurai did not allow himself to surrender completely. His sword was often placed within reach, close to his futon, so that even in the quiet of night, he was prepared for danger. The act of lying down itself was deliberate. Posture mattered, for even rest was a form of training. Pillows filled with buckwheat husks or beans offered firm support, keeping the neck straight and aligned, discouraging the indulgence of sinking too deeply into comfort. In this way, discipline never left them, not even in dreams. Family life, too, was shaped by this nightly order. The samurai's wife and children followed the same rituals of tidiness and respect, each futon carefully arranged, each movement considered. Silence was valued in the household at night. With homes built of wood and paper, sound traveled easily, and so quietness became a mark of respect for others. The evenings were not filled with noise or distraction, but with a calm stillness that seemed to mirror the gardens outside, where moonlight cast gentle patterns through leaves and water rippled softly in stone basins. To picture this scene, imagine yourself lying in a samurai household at night. You have washed, eaten, and prepared your futon. The lanterns glow faintly, filling the room with warm, golden light. The air smells faintly of tatami, rice straw, and the faint smoke of an oil lamp. You place your sword carefully at your side, not out of fear, but out of discipline and readiness. You rest your head on the firm pillow, feeling your body align as your mind lets go of the day's burdens. Perhaps you whisper a short prayer or let a haiku drift through your thoughts, carrying you into a state of calm. Around you, the house is silent, except for the creak of wood and the distant sounds of nature. In this stillness, you sense not only the possibility of sleep, but also the quiet strength that comes from living a life in harmony with order. These nightly rituals may seem small, but they carry deep meaning. They reminded the samurai of who they were, even in their most vulnerable state. To rest carelessly would be to dishonor the discipline that shaped their existence. Instead, every night was an opportunity to reaffirm their values: cleanliness, mindfulness, respect for others, and readiness for duty. Even in rest, the samurai lived by a code. Compared to our own modern nights, filled with glowing screens, cluttered bedrooms, and hurried routines, the samurai's rituals can feel almost meditative. There was no rush, no excess, no chaos. Only a slow unfolding of actions that prepared body and mind for sleep. And perhaps this is why their sleep was so different from ours. For them, sleep was not an escape, but a continuation of their discipline, a quiet training ground where even dreams were touched by the code of Bushido. And so, as the night deepened and silence filled the samurai home, discipline gave way to rest, and rest gave strength for the duties of tomorrow. Even in sleep, the samurai lived as warriors of order, never truly unguarded, always carrying within them the calm weight of their values. For the samurai, the day did not truly end when the futon was unrolled and the lanterns were dimmed. Even as their bodies sought rest, their hearts and minds carried the unbroken awareness that life could change in an instant. Japan in the age of the samurai was not a world of certainty or security. Wars between rival clans, sudden attacks, and unexpected calls to arms were part of life's rhythm. A samurai could not afford to let down his guard, not even in slumber. This reality shaped the way he approached sleep, and it meant that armor, weapons, and preparedness were never far from reach. Unlike the soft beds of nobility in other parts of the world, the samurai's sleeping space was practical and stripped of indulgence. The futon laid upon the tatami was not only a place of rest, but also a place of vigilance. Just as the sword never left a samurai's side during the day, it remained close at hand at night. In many homes, the katana was placed carefully within arm's reach, either leaning nearby or laid on the floor beside the futon. Its presence was more than symbolic. It was a practical necessity. A samurai was trained to respond quickly, and so his weapon rested beside him like a silent companion, ensuring he was never unarmed, not even in dreams. The armor, too, had its place in this nightly preparedness. A full suit of samurai armor, or yoroi, was far too heavy and cumbersome to sleep in. Made of iron, leather, and intricate lacing, it was designed for battle, not for slumber. Yet, pieces of armor, particularly lighter parts such as arm guards or helmets, were sometimes kept nearby, ready to be donned in haste. Some samurai might have laid their armor close to their bedding, arranged so that it could be slipped on swiftly in the event of a night alarm. To live as a warrior meant living in a state of readiness, and even the quietest hours of the night carried this unspoken expectation. The samurai's sense of preparedness went beyond physical weapons and armor. It was also a matter of mental discipline. Before lying down, a samurai often reminded himself of his duty, centering his mind with prayer or meditation. In the code of Bushido, the awareness of death was never far away. To sleep each night with a sword at your side was a reminder of life's impermanence and the possibility of dying at any moment. Instead of fearing this, the samurai accepted it, letting it guide their choices, even in the stillness of night. This acceptance did not breed despair, but clarity. To rest with one's weapon near was to live in harmony with the reality of a warrior's life. Imagine lying there on the tatami, the futon beneath you offering gentle comfort, while just beside your hand rests the cool steel of a sword's hilt. The lanterns have been extinguished, and the room is bathed in the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the shoji screens. Outside, the wind stirs the bamboo, and the distant cry of a night bird echoes across the quiet fields. The house is calm, your family breathing softly in nearby rooms, yet your awareness does not fully dissolve. You know where your weapon is. You know how quickly you could rise if called. And so, even as your body drifts into the slow rhythm of sleep, your spirit remains prepared, anchored by the discipline that defines your life. This readiness extended to the household as a whole. A samurai's family was aware of the dangers of sudden attack, and so their homes were designed with both beauty and practicality in mind. Doors could be secured, walls could be shifted, and the open layout of rooms allowed for movement in times of urgency. For the samurai himself, armor and weapons were arranged not out of paranoia, but out of respect for the duty that might call him at any time. Even the way futons were positioned had meaning. A samurai often slept facing the door, or at least oriented so that he could rise quickly to meet a threat. It is striking to compare this nightly preparedness with the way many of us sleep today. We lock our doors, set aside our devices, and often drift into sleep without thought of danger. For the samurai, such unawareness would have been unthinkable. Every detail of his sleep environment reinforced awareness. The sword's presence, the nearby armor, the alignment of the body, the discipline of posture. Even in sleep, he was a warrior. His body might rest, but his identity did not. There is a certain calm strength in this way of living, even if it seems demanding. To sleep with your weapon near, to keep your armor ready, was not only about survival, it was about trust in oneself. It meant that even in the most vulnerable hours, a samurai was never helpless. Preparedness was not a burden but a form of peace, a reassurance that no matter what came, he was ready to face it. This balance between rest and readiness reveals much about the samurai spirit. They did not separate life into compartments of duty and leisure. Even in sleep, duty lived beside them, not as an intruder but as a constant companion. So as the night deepened in samurai households, with the glow of lanterns fading and the sounds of the world dimming, the quiet presence of armor and weapons reminded all within those walls that discipline never rested. The samurai could lie down and close his eyes, but he did so with the silent confidence that he was prepared. His sword was not just a weapon, it was part of who he was, as inseparable from his identity as his breath. And thus, even in the tender stillness of night, the samurai remained what he always was, a warrior guided by readiness, living with the knowledge that life was fragile and peace could be broken without warning. Yet in that awareness, he also found a profound calm, the calm of knowing that when the moment came, he would rise, already prepared, already steady, already true to his path. In the quiet of night, as moonlight draped the rooftops of villages across Japan, the differences between social classes became quietly apparent, even in the way people slept. Life in the age of the samurai was not equal for all. Warriors, farmers, artisans, and laborers each experienced the night differently, shaped by their duties, resources, and social standing. To understand how the samurai slept, it is important to place their practices within the broader world of Japanese society, and to see how their privileges and responsibilities contrasted with those of the peasantry. For the samurai, sleep was a reflection of both discipline and relative comfort. In wealthier households, rooms were larger, housing multiple tatami mats that allowed space for movement, meditation, or study before rest. The futons were often thicker, filled with more cotton, and layered with blankets appropriate for the season. Rooms could be heated in the winter by small hearths, and the homes were carefully maintained to ensure cleanliness and air circulation. In these environments, the samurai slept with a certain awareness of security, yet with comforts that allowed a more restful night. The sword remained near, the posture deliberate, and the mind alert, but the physical setting supported both readiness and relaxation. Lower-ranked samurai, however, faced a slightly different reality. Though they shared the same values of discipline and preparedness, their homes were smaller and often shared with extended family members. The futons were thinner and sleeping space was limited. Yet even in these simpler settings, the arrangement of the home and the careful positioning of futons and weapons reflected a commitment to order. Every night, the samurai maintained rituals of preparation, aligning futons, checking that swords were within reach, and ensuring that the household remained calm and disciplined. The space might be modest, but the principles of readiness and mindfulness were constant. In contrast, peasants and farmers experienced sleep in ways dictated largely by necessity. Their homes were simpler than those of the samurai, often a single room with earthen floors, thatched roofs, and limited furnishings. Beds were rare. Most lay on straw mats or simple blankets. Comfort was secondary to warmth and protection from the elements. During the long winters, the cold might seep through thin walls, and during the humid summers, the heat could be stifling. Peasant families slept in close proximity, huddled together for warmth and safety. Their sleep was dictated less by ritual and discipline, and more by exhaustion after a day of strenuous labor in the fields. While the samurai had the luxury of combining readiness with meditation, peasants relied on the restorative power of sleep to regain strength for the work of survival. Yet, even in these differences, there were parallels. Both samurai and peasants were attuned to the natural rhythm of the day. Sunrise and sunset dictated activity, and the quiet of night allowed the body and mind to reset. Noise was minimized in sleeping spaces, and simplicity was often a necessity, even if for different reasons. Whereas the samurai pursued minimalism as a form of discipline and spiritual alignment, peasants embraced simplicity out of practicality and the limits of material resources. In both cases, the night became a period of rest structured by the world around them. It is interesting to imagine how the two classes might have viewed each other's sleep. The samurai, with their disciplined routines, might have seen the peasants' rest as functional but unrefined, lacking the rituals that reinforced order and readiness. The peasants, observing the samurai's careful arrangements and presence of swords, might have seen their sleep as cautious, even tense, tied inseparably to the responsibilities of status and honor. Yet both found comfort in their own ways, whether through the physical protection of swords and armor, or the warmth and closeness of family during a long night in a straw-floored home. These contrasts also reveal the social hierarchy of the time. Sleep, like work, diet, and leisure, was shaped by status. The samurai's attention to ritual and readiness reflected both a philosophical mindset and the practical reality of being a warrior class. Peasants, while perhaps lacking elaborate rituals, developed resilience through necessity, learning to rest amid challenges and limited resources. In both cases, the night was never wasted. It was a time to restore, reflect, and prepare for the next day's demands. Even within a single household, the distinctions were visible. Younger samurai in training might sleep on thinner futons closer to the floor, while elders or heads of families rested on better prepared mats. Peasant families often had children and elders sharing the same sleeping space, their comfort subordinate to the practical need to conserve warmth and space. In both social spheres, the quiet of night became a mirror of the day's structure, responsibilities, and the values each group held dear. In imagining these contrasts, one can almost hear the gentle rhythm of life unfolding. A samurai might sit quietly on a tatami mat before sleep, rolling out his futon, arranging his sword, and preparing his mind for meditation. A peasant might stretch his tired body on a straw mat, huddled close to siblings or parents, listening to the sounds of the wind outside and the occasional creak of the house settling. Both find sleep, yet the quality, the rituals, and the purpose differ. For the samurai, rest is intertwined with discipline and honor. For the peasant, it is a practical necessity, a refuge from labor and fatigue. And so, the night in Japan was both shared and divided. Samurai and peasants slept under the same sky, yet their experiences were shaped by status, culture, and responsibility. In reflecting on these differences, we gain a deeper appreciation for the samurai's approach to sleep, not merely as a biological need, but as an extension of their identity. It was a life of readiness, mindfulness, and ritual, contrasting with the practical resilience of those who tilled the fields and sustained the society in which the warriors thrived. Through this lens, sleep becomes more than a daily act. It becomes a window into the values and structures of a society long past. And as we imagine these quiet nights, the contrast between a samurai's carefully prepared futon and sword and a peasant's simple straw mat carries us gently into reflection. Both ways of sleeping are human, both restorative, yet each tells its own story, whispering lessons of culture, status, and the ways in which people in history navigated the balance between work, rest, and survival. As darkness settled across villages and castles in feudal Japan, the quiet of night was far from complete. For the samurai, and indeed for all members of a household, the night carried both calm and caution. In a world where rival clans, bandits, and unexpected dangers could emerge without warning, security was never taken for granted. The samurai's nights were woven with awareness, vigilance, and a readiness that might feel almost foreign to our modern understanding of sleep. Even as lanterns cast soft glows on tatami mats and the moon painted the rooftops in silver, the knowledge of potential threats lingered quietly, shaping the way people rested. Night watch, or yoru no mima, was a common practice for samurai households and villages. Those assigned the watch would walk the grounds, lantern in hand, carefully observing the perimeter, listening for unusual sounds, and ensuring that gates, doors, and weak points in walls were secure. This duty might fall to the samurai themselves or to trusted retainers, but the expectation was clear. The safety of the household could never be ignored. Even when a samurai was allowed to rest, there was a shared understanding that the night was fragile. Sleep was not surrender. It was measured, mindful, and tempered with the knowledge that duty could call at any hour. Imagine a small samurai village at night. The streets are quiet, lanterns flicker along pathways, and the distant sound of wind moves through bamboo groves. Guards patrol slowly, their footsteps deliberate and unhurried, yet their ears attentive to every rustle, every creak. Within homes, families lie on tatami mats, futons arranged carefully, weapons within reach. The very design of the houses, the sliding paper doors, the open layouts, the elevated platforms, reflects an understanding that security is never separate from daily life. The samurai slept in a way that allowed him to rise immediately if danger approached, his body conditioned to respond. His mind attuned to both the serenity and the unpredictability of the night. The fear of attack was not merely hypothetical. Japan during the samurai era experienced clan conflicts, local disputes, and occasional raids. A sudden intrusion could occur, and those who were unprepared faced grave consequences. To mitigate this, samurai developed habits that might seem unusual today. Their sleep was often light, their futons aligned for quick movement, and their weapons carefully placed. Even their posture while resting reflected this preparation. Bodies were not fully sunk into the futon, heads were aligned, and hands were positioned to allow immediate action. For centuries, this constant vigilance shaped the physical and mental rhythms of rest. For households of peasants and artisans, the night carried similar pressures, though expressed differently. Villagers slept in close quarters, huddled together for warmth and safety. While they might not have possessed the swords and armor of the samurai, they maintained awareness of the vulnerabilities of wooden homes and fragile walls. Some households kept simple tools or farming implements nearby, not only for work but for defense if needed. Sleep, in this context, became both necessary and practical, a period to restore strength while still remaining alert to the unpredictable world outside. The samurai's own training extended into these hours. Meditation and mental preparation often accompanied nightly rest. Just as they practiced drills and honed their combat skills by day, they trained the mind to remain calm yet alert by night. The combination of physical readiness and mental discipline meant that even during sleep, the samurai maintained a quiet presence of awareness. Their nights were not marked by tension or fear, but by a steady, measured vigilance that balanced calmness with preparedness. This balance allowed them to rest while remaining true to their code of duty, their eyes closed, but their senses subtly attuned to the world around them. Within the walls of a castle, night watch could take on an even more organized form. Samurai would take turns monitoring gates, corridors, and watchtowers, ensuring that no part of the fortress was left unguarded. The rhythm of these rotations was predictable, yet necessary. Those sleeping knew that at any hour the watch could alert them, and in some cases, lower-ranked samurai might be awakened to respond immediately. Even for the head of the household, there was a sense of shared responsibility, a communal awareness that safety depended on discipline, order, and careful attention. This environment shaped the samurai's experience of rest in profound ways. Unlike our modern nights, often spent in isolation and complete security, the samurai's sleep was intertwined with the rhythms of duty. Even in moments of deep calm, their environment and habits reinforced readiness. Weapons, posture, and the layout of their sleeping spaces ensured that they could rise without hesitation if needed. Sleep was never simply indulgence. It was part of living in harmony with a world where peace was present, yet never guaranteed. Even as dawn approached and the quiet hours began to fade, the lessons of the night remained. The samurai, whether awakened by duty or allowed a full night of rest, carried with them a sense of preparedness that shaped the day ahead. Sleep, vigilance, and duty were intertwined, forming a seamless rhythm of life that honored both personal and communal responsibilities. In reflecting on these nightly practices, we gain a deeper understanding of the samurai way, a life where rest was purposeful, awareness was constant, and every moment, even in darkness, was a chance to live by one's code. And so, in the soft embrace of night, under the glow of lanterns and the quiet of tatami rooms, the samurai found a unique calm. It was a calm built on discipline, on readiness, and on the awareness that life could change in an instant. Sleep for them was not a surrender, but a deliberate act, a measured pause that honored duty and prepared the body and mind for the uncertainties of tomorrow. In this gentle balance of vigilance and rest, the world of the samurai unfolds, a world where even the night carries lessons of courage, mindfulness, and the enduring rhythm of life under the code of honor. As the quiet of night enveloped the samurai household, sleep was never simply a biological need. It was intertwined with philosophy, discipline, and the subtle rhythms of the mind. Zen Buddhism, which had a profound influence on samurai culture, shaped their approach to rest as much as it shaped their approach to battle, art, and life itself. To understand how samurai slept is to understand how they integrated meditation, mindfulness, and philosophical reflection into the quiet hours of night. Their rest was as much a training of the mind as it was of the body, a continuation of the discipline that defined every other part of their existence. Before lying down, many samurai would engage in meditation. This practice, often performed while seated on the tatami, allowed them to center their thoughts and clear the mind of distractions. Meditation was gentle yet deliberate, a quiet ritual that helped release the burdens of the day while simultaneously preparing the mind for vigilance. Even as they prepared to rest, the samurai did not aim for a state of total unconsciousness. Instead, they sought a balance, a mind calm enough to drift into sleep, yet aware enough to remain attuned to their surroundings. This approach created a unique rhythm of rest, one that combined physical relaxation with mental clarity. Zen philosophy also encouraged acceptance of impermanence, an idea that deeply influenced the samurai's nightly routines. Sleep was a reminder of the fleeting nature of life, and the awareness of mortality was never far from a warrior's mind. Lying on a simple futon, close to the ground, with weapons nearby, a samurai could reflect quietly on the transient nature of existence. This was not intended to cause anxiety, but rather to foster focus, humility, and gratitude for the moment of rest. Sleep became a microcosm of life itself, a delicate balance between surrender and readiness, between calm and alertness. The concept of mindfulness extended into every aspect of the sleeping environment. Futons were laid carefully on tatami mats, blankets arranged thoughtfully, and pillows chosen to support proper posture. The room itself was kept uncluttered, maintaining a sense of order that reflected both practicality and spiritual discipline. Even in the act of lying down, the samurai exercised intention. Every movement was measured, every arrangement deliberate, reinforcing the idea that discipline extended into the night. Meditation and preparation together transformed sleep from a passive state into an active expression of values, a continuation of the warrior's path even in moments of vulnerability. Sleep was also a tool for sharpening awareness. The samurai were trained to respond to subtle stimuli, the slightest creak, the faintest sound of movement. Meditation and mental focus enhanced this sensitivity, ensuring that even in sleep, they could awaken quickly if needed. The integration of mindfulness into rest created a unique state of consciousness, one where body and mind were at ease, yet the warrior's awareness remained subtly engaged. This balance was at the heart of the samurai's nightly philosophy, allowing them to rest deeply enough for recovery, while remaining aligned with the constant demands of duty and survival. Family life mirrored these principles. Wives and children were often present in the same sleeping quarters, and the household as a whole followed routines that emphasized calm, quiet, and attentiveness. Children were taught the value of mindfulness and order from a young age, observing the nightly rituals of their elders and participating in small ways, such as helping arrange futons or preparing the room for rest. In this way, the philosophy of rest was passed down, creating continuity across generations and reinforcing a culture of calm, intentional living. Even in times of danger or unrest, Zen principles influenced the samurai's approach to night. Awareness of impermanence and the practice of meditation helped cultivate courage, acceptance, and composure. Instead of sleeping in fear, a samurai could rest with confidence, knowing that discipline, preparedness, and mental clarity provided protection far beyond what armor or weapons alone could offer. Sleep was not indulgence. It was an extension of the code of Bushido, a deliberate practice that harmonized the physical and mental aspects of warrior life. Picture the scene. The room is softly lit by the fading glow of a lantern, the air carrying the faint scent of tatami and straw. The futon is spread neatly, blankets aligned, and the sword rests nearby. The samurai sits for a few moments in meditation, focusing on the breath, letting thoughts drift away like clouds passing across the moon. As he lies down, the body relaxes, muscles releasing the tension of the day, while the mind remains quietly attentive. Outside, the wind rustles the bamboo, the distant night bird calls, and the household sleeps in a rhythm shaped by both natural and philosophical order. This is the harmony of rest, where mind, body, and spirit align. The philosophy of rest also influenced the duration and timing of sleep. Samurai often rose before dawn, greeting the day with rituals of stretching, cleaning, and preparation for duty. Their sleep was structured, not endless, reflecting a life lived in cycles of action and recovery. By integrating meditation and Zen principles into nightly routines, The samurai ensured that even brief rest was restorative and meaningful. Sleep, in this sense, was not merely the absence of activity. It was a carefully orchestrated act, balancing recovery, awareness, and the cultivation of virtue. Through this lens, the samurai's sleep can be understood as a unique combination of calm, discipline, and philosophical insight. It was restful yet purposeful, quiet yet alert, simple yet rich with meaning. Unlike our modern approach, often focused solely on comfort or duration, the samurai's approach emphasized the integration of body, mind, and spirit. Sleep was a continuation of training, a reflection of values, and a reminder of the delicate balance between life, duty, and impermanence. And so, as night deepened and the house settled into quiet, the samurai rested. Meditation, mindfulness, and philosophical awareness softened the transition into slumber, allowing the warrior to sleep deeply yet lightly, to recover yet remain connected to the demands of life. In this rhythm of night, shaped by Zen, discipline, and a reverence for impermanence, the samurai found rest not only for the body but also for the spirit, a gentle, enduring calm that would prepare him for the dawn and all the challenges it might